Brenton is a junior taking up ITE in the Ateneo, IT Entrepreneurship in Ateneo de Manila University. He's a writer, UI/UX designer, and front-end web developer with a passion for helping startups grow and building IT-related products. He's the CEO and co-creator of the web app Campime. So yung ginagamit niyo pang gawa ng mga schedule niyo. And the co-creator of the website Business Made Easy. He was also a former product design intern at Caliber and a former web development and sales intern at Zap. He also writes articles from time to time in his blog.brandtime.xy. So let's give a round of applause for Ben.
Thank you, Alexis. So, hi guys. Thanks again for coming to this week's session. So just a quick survey, like how many hours of sleep are you guys running on? Okay pa naman? Or anyone running on less than 5 hours of sleep? Quite a few. Okay, I'm one of you guys also. I only had 4 hours of sleep last night. But I'm glad you guys came here to attend UX Uni instead of going home and sleeping or attending any other event. I'm glad you guys are still interested to learn about UX. So today's session is on ideation and lo-fi prototyping. So the outline for today's session is that we'll be starting off with remembering the problem that you're solving and your target user, and then we'll be talking about information architecture and user flows and wireframes, and then the bulk of today's session is giving you time to do user flows and wireframes for your websites and apps for UX Uni. So the reason why we're teaching this is because this week's output, so by Monday 11:59 p.m. next week, you have to create a full set of wireframes for your website or app or system. So that's already whether that's hand-drawn sketches or a digital wireframe, but it should be just black and white. And so we want to teach you, about how to make these wireframes in the best way possible. So that's why we're talking about information architecture, user flows, and wireframes. So just to remind you guys, we're here already in the design thinking process. So we had the first session on empathize, which Avery gave as his workshop on user research, and you guys already interviewed 2 to 3 people about their problems, and then you defined it. You had the define workshop by Laura and Dong, so you guys learned about how to create a journey map, empathy mapping, and creating job stories. So now we're in a bit of ideating and prototyping. So this is where you're coming up with creative solutions on how your website or apps flow and screens will look like. But before we start with today's workshop, I want you guys to remember what you're solving. So before we start, it's important you guys be reminded of what problem you're solving and who your target user is. So if you guys didn't attend last week's session with Dom and Laura, one of the things they did was think about their how might we question. So that's when you create a problem statement like how might we make the ISIS website more convenient and delightful. So I want you guys to spend the next 2.5 minutes to write down or type down your problem statement for your UX Uni case. So this is something you're creating on your own. You can create a general one first, like how might we, like it's related to your case. So how might we make the ISIS website more convenient, more delightful? And then you can also make 1 or 2 sub questions. If sub how might we questions. If you guys still remember it from last week, if you made one, then you can use that. But I'll give you guys 2 minutes to write it down or type it down. Guys, if you're done making your general statement, you can now making 1 or 2 specific how might we questions that you might want to solve today using wireframing. For example, for ISIS, maybe it's how might we make the knowing whether a class is conflicting or not easier for students. So like how do you design a way that it's easy for a student to know oh, this class is conflicting and I shouldn't enlist in it. So things like that. So I'll give you maybe a minute for that. Alright, so I hope you guys finished. So we'll move on now. So aside from remembering your problem, I want you guys to remember your target user and the job stories you created, which should be due tonight. So if you haven't finished, hope you can send that in by tonight. So this is just so you're reminded of who you're designing these wireframes for, and you remember what their pains are and what their needs are, and even what they look like, so you have a clear picture of who your user is. And just to show how important this is, so we did this ourselves for Hangtime. So Hangtime is the web app my blockmates and I created, and it's also our ITE thesis project, which, you know, in ITE we work on it as early as third year, and we made these proto personas for Hangtime. So you can't really see it, but you draw the faces of who your target user is, and then you say what their demographics and behaviors are, and then you put your needs and goals. So we each did one, and then we compared who we thought our target users are. And then I personally keep this now in the wall of my study table, the wall in front of my study table, so I'm reminded who we're designing for. But before we go about, you know, wireframing, let's remember what we're wireframing, right? So wireframing is about creating these sketches or simple mock-ups of your websites and apps. So what we're wireframing essentially are websites and apps. But these websites and apps have something more fundamental to them. And that is that these websites and apps are systems of organizing and communicating information. Like, behind every website or app is really just a web of information that's meant to be relayed to you or relayed to other people. So like, if you have a landing page, you might have all these different pages and sub-pages or subsections. Or if this could be a quick information network of how Facebook works. You know, you go home, sign up, log in. So all these websites and apps are really ways of organizing and communicating information. And that's why we're going to learn about information architecture first. So before we can ideate and prototype, we need to know what are the best practices in organizing information within a website and app. So let's define what information architecture is. So the official definition by the IAA Institute, so information architecture is also known as IAA. It's about helping people understand their surroundings and find what they're looking for in the real world as well as online. So if you're, for example, in the real world, examples of IAA would be like if you're in a museum and trying to figure out which galleries or parts you want to go to, that's IAA, because you're trying to let a museum goer know where each gallery or section is located. And then but the bigger use case of information architecture now is online. Like, you know, we spend so much time in websites and apps that it's so important for us to know where to go and to know, you know, how to do what we're gonna do. Like right now, it's already so intuitive to find different pieces of information on Facebook and Twitter, and you know, information architecture is what allows for that. But the simple definition really is that IA makes the complex clear and understandable for users. So this is the definition given by the head of IA Institute. I think her name's Abby Covert or Abby Covert. Yeah, so why is IA important? So it really helps you appreciate how easy it is to find information in some places and why it's harder in others. So really IA is an all-encompassing term for a lot of things. It's about like the sitemap or the structure of your website. It's how the labels of certain buttons and information is. It's how you organize content in your website. And you'll really appreciate why some websites are easier to use than others with IA. And then IA will help you guys figure out what content and pages are needed in your own websites and apps for the case. And it will help you find different ways of organizing your content. So just to show you guys examples of where IA is used. So essentially, like the library is one of the best places of a real world use case of IA, because the library contains so much information and it needs to be easy for a student to find a certain book or a certain resource. So like to us it's quite easier now that because we have a desktop system or a website where we can just search the name of a book, an author, a topic to find a book. But imagine like what if the library didn't have this website system? How would you find books in the library? And I think it would be really difficult because the library, it's not very like it doesn't clearly tell you that this section is for books about China. It's all about based on that call number system, but that call number system is actually what makes the library efficient, since you can use this website to find books really easily. But then you can also see how IA is so different in something else. For example, in a bookstore. So when you're at fully booked, the IA is so different compared to a library, because when you walk into fully booked, you don't see a computer where you're trying to find a book. You're going in there to see what book might I want to buy or read today. So that's why the books are their covers are usually facing outwards. They're laid like that instead of sideways, and then the categories of each of the books are clearly laid out, so you know where to find your book, or where to find your next book really easily. And then just to show you guys, so an example of good IA, I believe, is YouTube. So this is a screenshot of my YouTube my YouTube homepage. So you can see my interest from here of basketball mixed with startups and design and random tech news. So yeah, you can learn a lot from a guy's YouTube channel, YouTube homepage. But I say that YouTube is good IA because it relays so much information to you in a way that's easy to understand and it's clear to you. So like one of the main things you do on YouTube is to find a new video to watch. And so YouTube does this well already by having a recommended section where, based on the previous videos you watch, these are the videos you will probably like. But then you'll also notice that YouTube packs so much information within this small card. Like you have the title of the video, you have a picture about whether you'd want to watch it or not. And you have the name of the YouTube creator, how many views it gets, when it was released, and the time. And that's all in this small card. And I think that's really good information architecture, because whatever thing you want to know about this video, or the more important things, are already there. And you can also see the hierarchy of this information. Like, of course, you'd want to know the title of the video the most, but then you'd also want to know the time, and the image is the biggest because that's what will really hook you in. Yeah.
I have a bad example of IA.
Yeah.
So in Ateneo, when you're first year, you don't know what's the difference of Faber and Refora, Berg, Cedron, Bellarmine. Bad example. Also, side note, there's this event called World IA Day, and there are local versions of that event. And I think we're gonna have one this March, hosted by our UX professor. Yeah, so we have a UX instructor in Ateneo. She also organizes the IA community here. So yun lang. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I like this. So let's move on. So I guess I was trying to think of examples of bad IA, and I guess one of them is ISIS. And it's not it's more of the actual experience is bad, but there's also parts of its architecture that's bad. So for example, if you're trying to find a course to enlist in next semester, you have to manually type in your department and your what class it is, and find these classes yourself. But what if ISIS already knows that, okay, next sem you're probably gonna take these classes, and then it already gives you like a sidebar or something where you can press that class to see what slots are available. And then, for example, here, like this class is already -10 free slots, but it still shows up on ISIS. So there's no button to clearly filter out what classes still have slots or don't have slots anymore. And and there's this huge block of text here that makes each row so fat. Maybe there's a better way to show that information instead. So yeah, so if IA is making the complex clear, how exactly does IA do that? And so we're gonna get really conceptual here. So this is just really a framework to help you understand IA, and IA does this through the interplay of three things. So this is ontology, taxonomy, and choreography. So I'm taking this from this IA guide that one popular IA expert wrote, and it's well recognized in the industry. And so, just to simplify it, like ontology is about the words and labels that give off meaning. Taxonomy is about the grouping of these words and labels, while choreography is the interaction between ontology and taxonomy. So just to make that clear, like here's a great diagram that shows it. So the labels are the words you use to label buttons, tabs, and sections in your website. Then taxonomy is how you categorize certain pieces of information. So that's why if you're in the New York Times website, it's categorized by news, sports, tech. So you have these categories of the articles. And then you have choreography, which is the structure and design of how these labels and categories go together. Because when you're in a website, it's rare that you see something like this. Usually you'll see pages that interlink with each other, and that's what choreography is about. Okay, let's just deal with that. So, for example, if you're in Google Calendar, you see this button here on the right-hand side. So you can clearly see that there's a label so ontology can also be known as the copywriting or the micro copy. So the labels you use for certain things. So like this button, it says create event. But these labels can have different meanings based on the website you're in. Like if you're in Facebook, create event is something different. It's about creating an event to invite people to go to somewhere. While in Google Calendar, it's more of, this is creating an event in my schedule. And then when you press create event, you'd have these pieces, you'd have all these words, but then they're grouped into certain positions. Like you have all the dates here, you have all the event details here, you have all the guests there. So that's an example of taxonomy. And then choreography is just how it's all laid out, and how, for example, when you press save, all this information gets condensed it should show up as a card over here. So yeah, it's really about the interplay of the words you use, how you group them, and how you display them on a website. That's really what IA is about. And so, as you may have noticed, one of the key aspects of IA is knowing how to organize and arrange content. And one of the main ways this is done is through card sorting. So Avery already mentioned this in his first workshop. And card sorting is something a lot of UX designers use to know how to categorize things in their website or app. So, for example, if you're making a landing page and you have all these pieces of information you want to put in, like when is the event, a landing page for an event, when is the event, how do I pay? Yeah, you'd create all these cards of information. So normally you do this as a workshop where you create these cards of information, and then you have a user or someone who's going to use the website categorize them. So you they pick the cards and then they group them and then they put a label on that group. So like there's three types of card sorting usually. There's open, closed, and hybrid. So in open card sorting, the user makes his or her own list titles. So after you group them, you can name them, and this is what helps you see like, what would the user naturally call this group of items. So for example, you might think that this group of items is about event details, but then maybe how they label it is major details. So maybe that's what you might want to use instead in your landing page. And then in closed, maybe you already have predefined titles, like you already know, I want to call these categories in this way, and then you want to make sure, does the user understand that this card is under that? Yeah. And then hybrid is just a mix of the two. So you can either sort cards into predefined titles or make your own titles as well. So to show you the process and difficulty of organizing content, I want you guys to do a simple card sorting activity. So I want you guys to form pairs, if you can. Yeah, form pairs. Yeah, so what we're going to be doing today is a demo. So this is a card sort, and so this is taken from online. So this is a demo card sort. So just so you guys can visualize how this works in an online setting. So yeah, this is a demo card sort online. So this is the website optimalworkshop.com. So how you would do this is, let's say, so the actual prompt here is that, so we have a card sorting activity. So let's say we have this fictional telecom company called Banana.com. So let's say they're going to be the third telco player here in the Philippines, and they want you to organize a set of phrases into certain categories to help them organize their website. So they made all these cards, and then it's an open card sort. So you're supposed to put them into categories yourselves. But so we'll use these 9 cards first. So I want you guys to sort these into up to 5 categories, and then you can name the categories. So I'll give you guys about 45 minutes to do this. So I want you guys to do it individually first, without your and then after 5 minutes, I'll tell you guys when you can compare with your partner to see, did you guys come up with the same categories, and did you guys, get what I thought, or what Banana.com thought these phrases should be categorized. So I'll give you guys time for that. Okay, so hopefully you guys are done, or you're almost done. So I'll give you like 3 minutes to compare now with your partners and see what you guys did the same or differently, and then just find out who do you think made the better one or the more correct one. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to really organize a CD store. What if you actually own one, for example, in let's say 10 years ago when people still bought, and that would be a unique selling point of your music store if like every 2 weeks you would rearrange it so that people would want to buy a new CD. You can do it by mood, by location, by number of people on the album cover. So, by doing this ideation, you can see, okay, what are the really fun things or really cool things, and what are just silly, and hopefully you can take out the silly for the useful and cool ones. So just in summary, so IA again is about that interplay of ontology, taxonomy, and choreography, and then you can use IA in everything from organizing a real-world space or an online website or app. And then there's 5 ways you can organize things usually. That's location, alphabet, time, category, or hierarchy. And of course, there's many other sub ways of categorizing, but those are the main ones. And yeah, I want you guys to just make sure that you always think, does this information hierarchy or information categories, does this make sense? So yeah, that's it. And we'll now go to the next speaker. Yeah.
So the next speaker, let's give a round of applause for that.